Hey guys, it's the middle of July. I'm pretty much done picking all the currants. You can just see some of the little leftover of the red currant that took a little more time to ripen up. And we'll just snack on those whenever or leave them for the birds or something. And so the next step with these is going to be to trim them down. Usually I won't wait, I'll trim them right after I harvest. And sometimes when you do that, you will get a kind of another growth spurt the second half of the summer. So that's what we're kind of hoping for. And once you understand, kind of how to train a fruiting plant, there's no point of leaving wood that's not going to produce for you. You might as well concentrate the plant's energy on the parts of the plant that are going to produce fruit in the next year. So with red currant and white currant, which are again are the same species really, you trim them by leaving a good bit of old wood. So you can see quite an old branch here, and this is what a branch of this year looks like. So this is this year's growth here, whereas these more darker colored ones grew a few years ago. And so what red currant does is that it produces these kind of fruiting spurs, these short branches that all the fruit will develop on. Like you can see where that's coming from. These clusters of fruiting buds. And so with the red currant, you kind of, often people go in like a rule of thirds, where they'll have a third of the plant 1-year-old wood like this, third of the plant in 2-year-old wood, which would be I think this one here, and a third of the plant in older wood. And that's fine, I think. This plant is, let's see, 5 years old, and it's getting close to kind of its peak size and production. So I haven't really trimmed anything out of this one. I took one branch out of the white currant because really it could still grow quite a bit before we need to trim it. And so other than for fruit production, there's some rules you can apply to trimming any plant. Here's, by the way, the skin that ladybug larva, whatever it is, shed thing right there. So the other rules you can apply to trimming any plant, well, any dicot, I guess, is you take out wood that is diseased, damaged, or crossing. So by crossing means it's overlapping another branch, so it could potentially, rub on there and damage the bark, or that it's kind of growing inwards towards the center of the plant. So you want your plants growing up and out. So this branch right here could potentially be considered problematic. We'd really want a branch that goes like this, not one that goes in. But there's enough space around it that it should be all right. And this part is a walkway, so we want to keep that clear. Blackcurrant, on the other hand, is predominantly trimmed to keep as much 1-year-old wood as possible, because that's going to produce the most berries. In fact, these buds that you can see at each leaf node, this branch grew this year, but inside of that bud is already kind of the foundation for next year's fruit that's already kind of set. So it's important to keep a lot of those. And you can see on this branch that the berries, which were on these little branches, still one there, those were produced on last year's growth, which came up to, let's see, right here. And then from then on, this grew this year. So if we were to leave this branch, it wouldn't produce much down here, and all the production would be from this point on. So it's much more advantageous actually with blackcurrant to try to promote as many of these first order growths that come out of the base, out of the crown, like this one here. And you do that by giving it light. light to the center and trimming out all the lower. There's another one of those ladybug things. Trimming out all the lower branches to give good airflow and to get light down there as well. Generally anything that's kind of horizontal you want to take out. So I've trimmed this bush here and you can see how much I've taken out of there. I've probably trimmed it by about half. And this one still needs to be trimmed. And so, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what to take out here. This whole branch needs to go because look how low that's lying, because all the fruit it had, it weighted down, and next year it's going to be even worse. And again, all the production is just going to be on these smaller side shoots. So we can easily go down here. And take it out. No problem. The other thing with blackcurrant is it tends to rot in the very core. This one's actually doing really well. You can see that's nice and clean. But I can show you on this other one. You can see that right there. And it doesn't really affect it too much unless you keep the really old wood. So another reason to trim that out. There's a whole bush where it's already trimmed out, and that's just the start. And of course you could have left some of these if they weren't growing so low and so horizontal, or you can use them as cutting material to clone them. And again, the leaves have the same flavor, those same phytochemicals that the berries have, so the leaves themselves taste like blackcurrant. And so I use those for tea if they're clean. You know, I probably wouldn't take one with aphid damage. And the wood also has that compound in it, and so do the roots. I think those have been used traditionally for some medicinal purposes, but I was thinking maybe drying some out and cutting it up and using it in a smoker, see if I can transfer that flavor. That would be pretty cool, I think. Stepped on a tomato. Alright, so we're going to take out all of this lower stuff. And on this plant, it's been doing really well, really vigorous. You can see all these nice young shoots that are going all the way to the top. And so they're going to have production the whole length next year. So what we're going to do is basically take out all the older wood and leave mostly these the new wood and, you know, a little bit of the other stuff. You know, you can see this older branch here goes up, and then it splits into a fairly nice younger one, so we might keep that one. And this one right here doesn't split so well, so we'll probably take that out all the way down to the bottom. Again, what we're really trying to do is clear out as much of this as possible. We're building up quite a thick trunk, you can see here, which isn't a very good thing. This plant's doing really well, but that's going to cause us some issues when we go to trim that out. That's going to be really difficult. We'll have to try to saw that out without cutting anything else. In fact, I think most of that growth can probably come out, so I might have to be dealing with this one pretty soon here. Alright, so I trimmed out about just this front half of this one. You can see how much that is that I've trimmed out. So it's really opened up the bottom. And yeah, I still have more trimming to do. You can see we'll definitely want to take out this branch here. It's not going to do us any good. Just some shorter branches at the top, but mostly older wood. But yeah, still got the other half of this to go. And I'll usually get about, I don't know, 80-90%, and I'll leave a little bit just to see how it does the rest of the season, and then I'll come back in the fall or the winter when the leaves are completely gone and do the final trim up. So I didn't trim the other half because I want to take off the leaves that are still good on these, which is there's a lot on this bush that aren't really damaged by anything, and dry those out for tea.